It gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Benoît Brookens III, also affectionately known in tech circles as Dr. Big Data. He is the founder and CEO of Accrue, a company focused on databases, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. He is also the CEO and data scientist at NewOctave, a company focused on big data visualization applications that helps firms to make better business decisions. Mr. Brookens is superbly qualified to provide us with his views on how agile regulatory authorities like the Anguilla Financial Services Commission can better leverage the data that they collect. Regulators do sit on a lot of data. These include prudential returns and other filings made by licensees, to audited financial statements and the results of on-site inspections that the regulator may conduct. We'd be delighted to have his insights in relation to how regulatory bodies can intelligently interrogate the vast amount of data that they sit on. Benoît, over to you.
Thank you, Simone, for a wonderful introduction. My name is Benoît Brookens, as you've already heard, and today I'm going to be talking to you about AI and Anguilla, our digital future. We now live in a brand new economy. Blockchain is now mainstream. And the autonomous networks that we're now dealing with and that are growing up around us are changing the very face of every single interface that we have, from computers to calendars to the way we shop at stores. My company is an alternative data and a big data analytics company building artificial intelligence technologies for event-based actionable intelligence. Our philosophy is to help society grow over time by creating better transparency in economic systems. In 2016, we were selected as one of the most promising FinTech companies in the world by the UK government and the London Stock Exchange. Because of our promise to help cities and markets find greater clarity in the world around them. As we've all been dealing with the rapid changes around us with increased digitization, meaning using our phones for virtually everything, or using our computers for virtually everything. It's created a new type of overload, time pressure, and new factors that require us to react to new types of alerts from different sources at different places at different times than we've ever considered in the past 4 or 5 years. This process turns us all effectively into something like a data scientist, where we have to make complex data-driven decisions by finding good sources, organizing them, whether or not we do it in paper or in our minds, making sure they're clean, reading something that's accurate or not accurate, and verifying it. Is this real? Is this not real? And turning it into a model in terms of where we put this information about where we go next. So after you build that into a process of collecting, organizing, analyzing, selecting, and processing all this information, essentially you become a data scientist. And so we realize that this is quite time consuming. Most of us spend a lot of time cleaning, analyzing, and filtering the things that we need from the things that we don't. And information reduction is required. So we've set out to build something large. We call it the Internet of Events, to help us get more in an organized format that we can understand and process easier. So by tapping into the world of something called unstructured data. Unstructured data is information that is in a format or an interface that is not necessarily usable by our existing technologies or tools so that we can analyze information quickly and efficiently. So looking at a picture from your camera, you're not necessarily able to extract designer clothes or shirts or hats or even extract concepts like sarcasm. Additional analysis is required. And so taking the unstructured data in the world around us, we're not focusing on objects, people, or places. We're focusing on events, which is a very new class of topic. So we call this event recognition AI, identifying what is an event. How do you store it in the computer? How do you organize it? And how do you link it to other things? And after you have these system of records for truth, we allow our technology to validate and notarize the fact that we've made these observations. This is kind of a step toward an intelligent autonomous system of connected event-driven insights presented as a calendar which you'll learn. So essentially, we are building an event-driven, integrated global calendar system of the world. And we are organizing millions of different types of calendars into a single integrated view that allows us to understand different contexts and situations in a way that we've never seen before in our work and our personal lives. Our focus at our company is dealing with financial investors. And financial investors have to deal with unprecedented amounts of unexpected news. Everything is not scheduled. For example, take these two situations. We have consistent autonomous monitoring going on using our systems, where we look at things like hurricanes, we look at exchange listings, etc. And given the rise of digital assets, we have to look at digital asset exchange listings. And this isn't just as simple as looking at the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ or something like that. Exchanges that are engaged in the deep DeFi economy are pretty much a lot more scattered than you could ever imagine. For instance, reacting to a hurricane in real time or near real time is previously possible. However, it took an inordinate amount of resources in order to find the weak signal from the strong signal. So using autonomous systems and autonomous monitoring, someone like a hedge fund or a regulator can understand what is the typical reaction to an event like this across the industry. In this case, this is not financial advice, so I don't want anyone to focus on this specifically as an investment decision. But we're talking about making a decision from an upcoming event, looking at it in the context of what is the typical reaction, and how does this fit in, how does the current situation fit in the context of the broader view. So taking two examples, one an insurance company having some sort of price appreciation 100% of the time since 1997. Every single hurricane that's made landfall in the state of Louisiana. And the other hand, we have a cryptocurrency, arguably a utility token, where you have a competing cryptocurrency utility token called Dogecoin that essentially has been around much longer. And when an event happens where a competitor or a reaction or an unexpected event or an expected event is entering the marketplace or unfavorable event, assets have to reprice and things have to adjust. And so being able to extract these types of insights far more casually can essentially change the face of industries. So just talking broadly, a cryptocurrency listing where you have a competitor, Shiba Inu is a competitor of Dogecoin. When this coin gets listed and has the ability to reach more investors, there is a negative reaction in the increment. So Dogecoin is sold off and people decide to go to safety and buy Bitcoin itself. At the top of the chart, again, people are looking at hurricane landfalls and investors are pricing in claims, adjustments, and other types of factors that go into what happens after a hurricane happens. And so this cause and effect relationship is something that we do autonomously and using the help of AI. So how does it work? Essentially, we are organizing a system of intelligence by capturing weak signals and events that ordinary people would just take for granted, meaning it's a little difficult to organize all these nuanced features that a machine can learn and grow from also. So, for example, take an earthquake. All these earthquakes don't necessarily have to be at the center of a country. They can actually be far out, several miles out, several kilometers out. And in a place like Anguilla that thrives in tourism and fishing and other types of industries, the ecosystems could be impacted by these types of events. Other examples of economies other places that are affected around the world, could be just a city in general. A city could be impacted by the rise of a popular chain that gives a whole new context to what a neighborhood means. The coffee shop being someplace social, pre-COVID, was a focal point of real estate prices, and neighborhood development all across New York City. I saw it firsthand when I lived there myself. And so being able to look at a detailed chronology of, well, how these things happen, when they happen, and putting them in the correct context, it can give us unprecedented insights as to different types of activities that are taking place. It could be remodeling activities or growth in traffic. And so to understand why you would look at all these different types of parallel data sets, we can put this in perspective by looking at one example from several years ago. If we had the question, well, what we see a rise in the bottom left corner of Apple stock price between September and August and September of 2010. And we wanted to ascertain, well, why was that stock moving during that period of time? We go to Google, we look at Google News, we do a range search, we say Apple between these dates, nothing comes up. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll see Apple announces iOS 4.1 for the iPad, and eventually it will release. However, it wasn't the actual reaction. The reaction was the market was pricing in that the Epic 4G phone was probably going to be an epic failure. It doesn't exist. They introduced the Galaxy line as a result. But the greater story was that people knew the iPhone was a hit, and this product, the biggest competitor, just had a product that wasn't going to cut it. So being able to align these historical data sets allows us to greater contextualize and narrow down the focal points that we need to focus on by running our business. And this particular example can pertain to absolutely almost any variable in our organizations. This could be sales, this could be prudential returns filed on time. It could be a number of activities. And being able to understand, well, what was going on in this context, what made this time different than other times, is of unprecedented value to not only to financial investors, to regulators, and to other types of market participants. So investors and regulators share a problem with connected data. And without data connectivity, it becomes really hard to contextualize and allocate resources accurately. So when things change in our environment, say a hurricane happens or a competitor releases a product, there are different types of resource shortages or resource surpluses that take place that create all different types of dynamic financial risks affecting stakeholders around the world that we want to protect ourselves from and others from as well. So we did a little observation when I was based in Hong Kong, and I encountered my very first typhoon. It was a Typhoon 10. I normally, encountering a severe weather storm, I would just fly away and maybe go to Thailand, where the weather was a lot nicer. You could benefit from the lack of clouds, etc. And I wouldn't encounter a storm. So one time, which was actually the most severe storm, Hurricane Mangkhut, I stayed back and I observed a rapid transformation of a city that was actually so dynamic and always so efficient, always full of things. However, I went to the store before the hurricane hit, and I realized grocery store shelves were empty. And in the States, I remember, well, that typically is what happened when storms come. Stores are empty. So I was actually pleasantly surprised. And at the same time, I going downtown, you could see all different types of venues just bordering up. And so kind of making this observation, having this tool set that we have, it provided an unprecedented view for me in terms of how the real world is being reflected in other types of data sets. This kind of surfaced a quote that Ralph Waldo Emerson said, that relation and connection isn't just somewhere in some time, but everywhere and always. And this narrative of grocery store shelves being empty and drinking venues being closed and being reflected in the share prices systematically of the two biggest alcohol brands in China, Hong Kong, was a true eye-opener. And I realized the insights were far more important than just the numbers themselves. Maybe as a quant trader, you would look at, well, these stats are great, the p-values are low, the sharps are high, these different types of metrics that essentially people look for risk-adjusted returns. However, there was a much broader, more important human story that could have been told from this information also. Another example of this was in Hong Kong. I had the unique experience of dealing with one of the largest tourism events, similar to Anguilla. It has a tourist economy similar to Hong Kong. And they had a sporting event called the Rugby Sevens. And it's the world's largest of its kind. It's a weekend. And you have 100,000 people coming in for just 3 days of activities, 40,000 of which are coming from Australia. And they don't have cars. So they take the train. And so being able to kind of watch this dynamic take place and just curious about, does it surface? Does it pop up? Is it reflected in our network? And what can we do with this? Provided a very unique context for how I was building this company and dealing with clients and helping them explore their challenges. So when the tourism surge happens, we have local traffic jams, people taking taxis. It's not just riding the train. However, in the 6 days following the start of the event, people stayed back. There was a surge. The MTR, a surge in traffic and a surge in revenues. The MTR is unique because it's the public transportation system of Hong Kong, but it's also publicly traded and also a real estate owner of different types of shops and real estate that is in and nearby real estate stations, train stations. The tourism surge is also reflected in the foreign exchange prices. And the network effect of people traveling to and from Hong Kong resulted in the repatriation being visible in the exchange rates of the Australian dollar, meaning the Australian dollar was going higher in the days following versus the Hong Kong dollar, meaning people were selling Hong Kong dollars and buying Australian dollars in order to get back home. So this kind of context of being able to see the systematic behavior of people and markets and connectivity kind of tells a very unique story about how cities and markets are actually very, very connected. So this isn't alone. Looking at things that we can normally take for granted, such as holidays, unscheduled events, we can see different types of conversations happening around the world. It's not just conversations happening around neighborhoods being transformed with coffee shops, but even in cryptocurrency, even in the food we eat, even in the things we like. There are conversations that have been longer, and there are conversations that have been shorter. For example, cryptocurrency is a very new, enthusiastic one, and we're all kind of coming to terms for the first time with the fact that now blockchain and cryptocurrency is now mainstream. Central banks are now discussing digitized assets and potentially central bank digital currencies. And there's a growing enthusiasm for different types of verticals, from art to new different types of projects and new different types of value and value transferring processes across dynamic cryptocurrencies like Ethereum, which are viewed as far more innovative and far more exciting than Bitcoin itself, which is kind of viewed as the gold standard, so to speak. So kind of just looking at this chart here, we see Ethereum has been reacting around July 4th holiday. People are socially gathering, but producing consistently higher returns every single year consecutively since 2018. And this is not necessarily about trading or money making. This is really about a conversation that's being had for people understanding the network effect and wanting to participate. And as adoption takes place of cryptocurrencies, people want the newer thing. And none of this is investment advice. And it just shows that there is something to be had with being able to look at the world around us in this very unique data-driven way. People have not had an appetite for Campbell's soup during July 4th. In fact, if someone came to my barbecue and brought some soup, I probably would ask them to leave, even if they were a friend. I'm kidding, but I would hope they wouldn't bring soup to my barbecue. However, you can see that this is priced in also. So there is a network effect that's coming in, and there's different types of market risks that take place in both the price appreciation and the price declines of different types of assets around different conversations and narratives that are taking place. So risk isn't just up or down. Risk can be manifested in things not moving as well. So what we like to do is we want to help the world, help regulators, help investment managers, and economic stakeholders have connected access to real-time insights across their domains. And by dealing with the connected economy in such an open way, we have brought the calendar, which is probably one of the most under-innovated tool sets in our phone, but probably the most valuable. In fact, every single one of us relies on it for business meetings, for scheduling, for applications, and other types of things that essentially drive our local economies and the world around us. So this connected insights provides an unprecedented view for real-time insights and context from times in which we have less data than we previously imagined, but we need to know more, or our job is to know more, and our job is to be responsible to know more. So even if it's just something like a prudential return, like the Financial Services Committee is responsible for, you can put this in a much broader context of why were people late filing? What were they doing? Was there an inclement weather event? Are claims in the insurance sector higher or lower? Being able to kind of extract very casual macro and micro insights from just very simple time series data sets is now something that regulators can benefit from, and so can their constituents. So what are we doing? We are sharing with the world a unique way to upload and download contextualized information across a broad variety of topics that other financial services, pure financial services companies just don't cover. Being based uniquely between the United States and Asia, we cover things like superstitions and the lunar calendar and other types of factors that are specific and sensitive to regions that are not in the West. So taking on industry calendars and understanding cultural events and local events across the world, even Africa, provides a very unique narrative, affording unique connected insights that shows us the world is coming of age. The importance of this is that every single one of us has something that we can explore and can contribute. And as the digital economy grows, we're going to need to do more with what we already have. And that means that we can throw less away. And as you can see that being reflected in the amount of data that we all have. In fact, our hard drives are getting bigger and not smaller. Although the size gets smaller, but the data on it keeps growing amassing. So we built tool sets to support developers and support corporates to be able to provide new different types of contexts for different types of data sets. At the time of making this slide, we had 10 million event streams. We have over 25 million now. And you can connect all the global calendars around the world from, say, fashion shows in Africa or trade shows in Anguilla, or even weather events or earthquakes, and you can put them right on your Google Calendar, naturally as if it was just someone scheduling a meeting. So you can casually subscribe and gain insights or do correlations as you've seen earlier in our decks. So the process here is normally very painful. Being able to extract insights from hurricanes or weather events or insurance issues, even being able to kind of cross any type of time series data set with an unexpected or scheduled event is incredibly challenging. I mean, can you imagine the assignment of tell me which products go up or in sales exactly from December 2nd to December 8th each year? I mean, that challenge itself would keep people up at night for sure. So being able to do this across more dynamic different types of data and provide it simply as an event stream, we feel like we are changing the very hopes and prospects of small competitive digital economies like Anguilla to be able to benefit from the blockchain infrastructure that's now growing all around them. And with utility tokens taking on the pervasiveness that they are, from being accepted from sports stadiums to e-gaming conventions to pretty much every single thing digital that we've already done, it puts Anguilla at the forefront of being able to understand and regulate and to manage the correct expectations that they have for themselves and they have for the companies that they regulate and the corporates and the tokens that they regulate about are the things that we want to take place happening? Are people being taken advantage of? Are they promoting in healthy ways? Is there price manipulation? Is there correct price discovery? Are things breaking the normal trend cycles, et cetera? These are all going to become very important conversations in the next 3 to 5 years, if not even sooner. And so being able to help small, lean organizations like a small regulator without the resources of, say, a central bank, to be able to understand that they are essentially taking on that challenge by opening up the view of regulating and managing and supporting utility tokens, which can come from all around the world. It'd be interesting to see if other countries decide to regulate their cryptocurrencies by rules of another one. So essentially, going from event-based research to actionable intelligence is something that is of unquestionable importance for any organization looking to manage the way forward. We are essentially hoping that organizations view this as one of the major platforms for industry, because it's not just about exploring seasonal trends or contextualizing consumer behavior. Well, this user was shopping at this place or during this type of event, and we understand that this is the nature of tourism. It helps regulators and organizations understand different types of behaviors that are typical and atypical, and being able to build their own different types of indices. These indices don't necessarily have to be financial, but they could be societal or ESG related, also environmental, social, or governmental. So as the world kind of begins to start building our own avatars, and we begin digital twin modeling ourselves and our factories and our businesses in order to uncover the hidden insights, we hope that the use cases that presented here have explored well past your viewpoint that we've given some financial specific examples. So what's next for us in terms of how we can help create and predict the future by what's next is that we're building AI models to help organizations, investors, and regulators essentially predict events. Under these conditions in this environment, our outcomes like this are likely to occur. And being able to infer these probabilities creates a whole new set of opportunities for, well, what blockchain really is, how the network effect is visible, and what can be done about it. So focusing on making information and data and code very accessible, we view data and code as something very interchangeable, and we also intersect the creative elements. And one thing that is unique to us in terms of why places like Anguilla have so much hope and promise in terms of being able to capture the future is that this is a creative age. Computers are excellent at learning formal rules and formal structures of different types of algorithms if you program them. But the X factor really is the human creativity, the human ingenuity that creates startups and creates ventures and creates the new probabilities for things that have never been computed. So the human factor, the people-generated events are of unquestionable value. And so by focusing on what's next in terms of the creativity, the creative components, we built drag-and-drop interfaces to allow people to express ideas in a very simple Lego-like fashion by stacking Lego blocks. Again, our examples are purely financial investment related in nature, just because of the nature of our startup. However, our technology extends to very different verticals, beyond what you would see here. Users are able to analyze in context by using backtests. So these backtests allow for complex conditional modeling. Under these conditions, with these factors, with these rules, what was the outcome? What conditions did we find? Did we see a rise or decline in the various factors that we were looking for? And this allows for a very casual exploration of ideas and the learning and growth that you would want to see generated in terms of curiosity and feedback. So I'd like to thank you and the Anguilla Financial Services Commission for allowing me to speak today and to present with you some view of the future and what's next. Thank you.
Thank you, Benoît. Your thoughts on the use of data analytics and data visualization in tandem with the risk-based approach that most regulators use for the supervision of financial services participants has been definitely insightful and enlightening. Regulation is taking huge leaps forwards. With the rapid adoption of innovative solutions in FinTech, it is only natural to expect that technological tools being made available can be utilized to great effect by regulators, and the Commission is certainly in the midst of its upgrades. Both sides of the regulatory ecosystem have always been interlinked, but your presentation today, Benoît, has solidified how these linkages will continue to deepen our collective future. On behalf of the Anguilla Financial Services Commission, I would like to personally thank you once again for accepting our invitation to present at our 2021 FinTech and Compliance Conference and look forward to our future discussions. Thank you again.